Thank you so much for choosing to listen to Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. I'm Kristen Dees, the founder of Catalyst Consulting, a business consulting agency that is passionate about helping small businesses thrive. The goal of this podcast is to connect entrepreneurs with experts in a variety of industries that support small business owners in order to provide you with helpful tips, resources, and some entrepreneurship inspiration. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. My guest today is Jen Bilger.
Yes.
I always forget to ask. I'm like, I have it in my head. And so I think I know how to say it. And then I'm like, crap, I have to actually introduce this poor person. Anyway, she is a consultant for behavioral leadership and all the things that kind of go with that. So I'm pretty excited to have you on here. And yeah, so tell us a little bit about you as a human being. Where are you from? What are your hobbies? All that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm originally from Ohio. I'm a diehard Buckeye fan. I love college football, so this is my season coming up. I love it. So, and yes, I am a Buckeye fan. True blue. I shouldn't say blue. Oh my goodness. My husband would love that though, because my husband is the other team. That is the big rival to the Buckeyes. So he would love that I said true blue. But I'm originally from Ohio. We moved to Denver, originally in 2004. The first time around 2005, stayed here a couple of years, moved back to Ohio for about 5 years. And then I gave up on Ohio one day and said, I'm done. I want to go back to Denver. I love it. So we love all things about it. It's a beautiful country here. Where else can you look out the window and see the mountains from just about anywhere? And currently live downtown here. It's just me and my husband in a high rise in the middle of downtown Denver. And we quite enjoy doing the things that downtown allows us to do, going to different shows, going out, doing those things. But we truly enjoy going out to restaurants. And that's why we live in the downtown area. And that's why we love where we are. So.
Yeah, I'm a downtown city girl also. I've lived all over the place, all different kinds of places. I grew up out in the middle of nowhere, outside a small town in Oregon, and then have lived outside of the towns. But right now I've been living in downtown Spokane for about 3 years. And there's some cons. There's a lot of transient foot traffic, but I love, we go to plays and go to shows, and the restaurants are phenomenal. So I get you.
It took us a while. We bought and sold 3 houses, and it took us a while to figure out exactly where we needed to end up early on, because I grew up in a very small town of about 3,000 people in Ohio, and very rural farm country, fields surrounding us type thing, in the Midwest. And it's quite different to move even to the cities in the Midwest. It's a little different than the cities out here in the West. It's just a different flavor. And it took us a while to figure out that's where we belonged. So, and he grew up by the lake. So we are completely outside of both of where we grew up and what we grew up doing. And he misses the water every once in a while. I miss the countryside every once in a while, but we can go up to the mountains and get both of those if we need to. So
yeah. Yep. Same. Eastern Washington. So it's like, it's 10 minutes to Lake probably. So yeah, no, I'm on board. What's a fun fact about you?
So I was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to say, but I guess the one thing that I kind of go back to is I've been coaching since I've been the age of 13. So I was a gymnast. I was a gymnastics coach since the age of 13. I started with wee little people, preschool size, and coached for until my shoulders completely gave out on me. I coached cheerleading and gymnastics, tumbling, all of that kind of stuff, competition cheerleading, the whole jazz. But I've pretty much been coaching most of my life. I kind of am a little proud of that I didn't know when I went into the corporate world that I would end up being a coach someday. I spent 20 years in the corporate world, but I had a role where I was coaching and mentoring people. So I kind of say I've just been doing this most of my life.
I feel like it's kind of a calling. It's like the leadership calling or whatever. You can't not coach people. It's impossible.
Yeah. It's part of, and I'm on the behavioral side of business, and it is part of who I am. If you do my profile, every single time it comes up, this is exactly what I should be doing. This is who I am. I am a mentor. I am a coach. I am somebody who wants to teach other people how to do the things that they feel are impossible for them. And even when people would ask me what my superpower was, that what would your superpower be, or what is your superpower, I would always say, helping other people figure out theirs. That was
Mhm.
always my answer. And I've been doing that for such a long time. And people say, coaches have a unique eye to figure out things and see something that other people can't see. So when you talk about a coach, they are looking at you as a whole human, and they are figuring out exactly what you don't always see in yourself. And they're helping you figure out what that is and bring that out. And a good coach doesn't tell you the answer. They help you discover it on your own. So, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, being able to challenge people and challenge their own assumptions about themselves in a way that helps them like self-realize things. Cause that's my coach does the same thing to me. And she'll be like, do you feel like this is maybe an instance of X, Y, or Z? And I'm like, yes, but like,
yes, help me figure out why.
yeah.
Yes, I know that's where you're going with it.
Yeah. I usually go, oh my God, Carly. Yeah.
I love
So
it. When people tell me things like that, they're like, how do you know those things? And I'm like, because I just know what I'm looking for. I know what I know what you're saying to me when you're saying it, and I know what I need to focus in on when I'm doing it. And again, when you do my profile, that's exactly what my profile comes up with each and every time.
it's like it's like, I don't know why you're asking. Yeah. That's funny. So what do you do for work? How do you support business owners and entrepreneurs with that superpower?
So I love what I get to do. And when I left the corporate world, I took that piece out of it that I was helping, because that's what I would do. I worked in human resources for 20 years in the corporate world. So basically,
God bless you.
Yes. People are like, either they know or they say, why'd you leave? And I'm like, oh, you don't know.
Yeah.
You
I think
don't understand.
I think when we met, I asked you if you were okay.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm doing much better. I've been out of the corporate grind of things. I do HR consulting still, because I still love helping people in that capacity. But the corporate grind of it and how you have to deal with everything that's there, it was one of those things. I left because I couldn't do enough of what I'm doing now. And what I'm doing now and what I used to do in the corporate world would be to sit there and just look at somebody and say, so Kristen, tell me what you think you should do in this situation. And people would always look at me and say, but I came to you. And I'm like, you already know the answer though. So tell me what you think you want to do. And I'm either going to say yes or no to it, but let's figure out what you think you should do in this situation. And, people are like, I don't know. What do you think I should do? And I'm like, no. You tell me. Tell me what your thoughts are on this subject. And I said, you're probably right. Unless you want to do something illegal, you're probably right in the situation, and help them understand how to deal with that. It was a much better. I always find that it's a much better structure for people, is to help them understand that they are correct in what their thoughts are. They just need a little support around it. And they already do know the answer somewhere. And asking advice is always great. I always loved it. I always gave them praise for coming and saying, hey, you did it. You coming to me is a great thing, because I'm going to be able to validate what you want to do. And most of the time it was just like, they're like, well, do you think we should write the person up? Nah, go talk to them. If they don't improve in the next couple days or so, or whatever it was, maybe weeks, depending on what it was, come back to me and tell me about it. And then we'll decide if we're going to write the person up. And people always were just like, but you're human resources. And I was just like, yeah, but it's more work for me to write people up. Go talk to them. If it resolves the issue, makes my job a little easier. I don't have to write them up. And everybody was just like, you have a distinct set of rules. And I was just like, we have a framework. We have a framework that we work with. As long as it's not illegal, we're good with just sending people off sometimes and saying, you're good. You're doing the right thing. Go do more of that. And then come back to me if you need some more help. And you don't need me in the room right now. You don't need HR sitting there. Recently with one of my clients, the boss didn't tell them I was coming in, and I do HR consulting for the company. So having HR, it's a small organization. Having HR come into the company is like a big scary thing when you have the HR sitting in the room. And I forgot how much I dreaded that feeling, and dreaded people thinking of me as this horrible thing.
You're like the Grim Reaper. Yeah.
And when they were like, and it's just that fear of I'm getting fired, and and I'm like, actually, I'm here because they don't want to fire you. So let's get that clear right now. If they don't want to fire you, that's why I'm sitting here trying to resolve this issue. And that was always the hard thing about being in the corporate world was people thought I was there to fire people all the time. And was that what I was there for? Sometimes, yeah. Most of the time, that was not the end goal. That was not what we were trying to do. And I get to not do that most of the time now, unless I decide to pick up some HR consulting on the side.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how do I support businesses? I support businesses by helping people define who they are and use their strengths in their business. And what that means is, it's I always say my superpower is kind of going to be able to figure out exactly what that looks like, because I'm capable of viewing you outside of how you view yourself, because you're looking at your faults first. Usually people look at their faults first. They don't look at their strengths first. And I'm capable of seeing exactly where the strengths are, because that's kind of what I do. I'm looking exactly for where the strength is, so I know where to utilize it and help you figure out where to utilize that best. And like I said, if I was sending you away, I always told managers, I said, if I'm sending you away, I trust that you're better at this than I am. So go do it. But they're like, but that's what you do. Yes, I know. But I'm trusting you're going to do this better than me right now. So that's why I'm sending you to do the job and not me, kind of thing. Giving confidence to people to utilize their strengths because they don't know they have them sometimes, and helping them really figure out what it means to embrace their strengths and understand their limitations. And I do a lot of focusing on fears and limitations with some people, because understanding what the fear is, understanding your limitation actually brings out your strength even more. It allows you to collaborate with the right type of people to enhance what your strength is. And so when I'm working with people all the time, I'm like, you're really not good at this. So, and I'm blunt. I was like, yeah, I have a bookkeeper because I can do math. I am not bad at math. I hate doing math though. So if I have to do my bookkeeping, if I have to do my finances, I'm not going to do it. Because when I'm done with my day, I really don't want to do the task that I don't want to do. It's not a strength of mine. It's not something I love doing. So I hire somebody to help me, and I collaborate with somebody who helps me understand what I need to. I completely know how to do it on my own. It's kind of like changing your oil. You either know how to do it or you don't know how to do it, but you hire a professional to help you do it because it's not your cup of tea. It's not what you do best. And a lot of times people, when I come in, I'm just like, I'm like a doctor. I'm like your auto mechanic. I'm like the person that you hire that's the professional to do something that you can do. Can you? Probably. There's a lot of things you can do in a lot of different cases. Do you need somebody else to guide you through that because they're more of an expert and they deal with it on a daily basis? Absolutely. So you bring me in to help you guide yourself to get to that, build that foundation, figure out how to do those things and use your strengths. That was a long-winded answer, so I apologize.
No, you're good. So who is usually hiring you? Is it businesses that have teams of people? Is it like one-on-one, like executive level coaching kind of stuff, or is it a mix of all of that?
It's a mix of all of that. So I work a lot with entrepreneurs and startups. Denver, Colorado is a very beautiful place for startups. So I work with a lot of people who are starting organizations. I work with people who are the middle of the way through. I have a client that I just brought on that's been doing it for 8 years and hit a plateau, and they don't know how to get beyond the plateau that they've hit. They know they can grow. They know they can do more things. They just don't know how to get there completely on their own. So they'll hire me to help bring out those strengths and figure out what the next steps are for them. And like I said, I kind of build confidence for people most of the time. I help them build that confidence that they need to know that they can do those things. I like to tell people up front, I started as a coaching franchise. And I started as a coaching franchise because I didn't have confidence that I could run a business on my own. I had never done it before. Nobody in my family, my husband has his own business, but outside of that, I didn't have anybody else in my own experience growing up, anything of that nature, that could really give me guidance in that area. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I signed up for this wonderful coaching franchise, and it's beautiful for many people because it is a business in a box. It does so many different things. What I found was I just lacked the confidence to know that I actually could run my own business. I'm no longer part of that franchise because I gained that confidence, and I actually gained it during 2020 when the world shut down, because what that template was that they had given me wouldn't work in that world. So I had to figure out something outside of that. And once I started doing that, I realized what I hired them for, I actually never needed at all. And so when I'm working with people, the very first thing I tell them is, you get to hire me for 1 to 2 rounds of sessions. If I haven't solved your problem within 2 rounds of sessions, I'm not doing my job. So you need to work with other people, because my job is not to hold your hand forever. And my job is not to, if you want a specific problem solved, if you want help building in this specific area, you hire me. Here are my packages, buy my package. You get to buy it twice, because usually it's a pack of 6. You get to buy it twice. And after that time period, then you need to reevaluate if I'm working for you. Now, if you have another problem to solve and you need guidance in another area, please hire me again. Give me more money. But if I've helped you the first time around, I have no problem doing that. But if we're still working and you're still stuck in the same area, I'm not doing what I need to do with you, then you need to reevaluate and work with somebody else. And when I tell people that, they're like, well, don't you make money by having coaching? Yes, that's how I make money. Yes. But my job is not to hold your hand forever. My job is to teach you something specific and give you the confidence to do it on your own. And if I've done that well, then you won't need me after a certain point. You may need me for something else specific, but not for that thing anymore. So if you're hiring me to gain confidence in getting yourself into a certain level of business, if you've hit that level of business and you've been successful in it, then we can go on to the next level and we can do other things. But I want to hold somebody's hand during their journey for a short period of time. And I guess that's kind of what I did when I was working in human resources. I was with somebody for a certain period of the journey, helping them and supporting them during that time. And I never go away. You can always call me. I have clients who I haven't worked with for a while, and they'll call me and they'll say, I just need a little bit of advice. Like, okay, talk to me. What do you need? I just need to bounce this idea. Okay, you know the answer. Tell me what you think the answer is, kind of thing. They just need that confidence build up again in something that they're just unsure about, they're insecure about. And the reason why I do that for people is because I wish somebody had done that for me. I wish somebody had said to me, you have all the tools needed to run a business. You're doing well. Let me support you in this and help you understand how you can best use your tools and use your resources. So I work with assessments to help people. The assessments do not help me, they help you. So having validation and verification of something that you think about yourself or that you are not sure about yourself helps you understand where those strengths come in. And so if somebody has said, well, I've never really been good at this, but we have an assessment that says otherwise, we walk through and say, why does the assessment say you're really good at this? Or why does the assessment say, validating something? Usually it's a validation. Most people, when they read their assessments that I give them, they're like, this doesn't really surprise me much. Like, it shouldn't. It's all about where your preferences are and where your strengths come into play. And the truth of the matter is, we already know what they are usually. We just never had somebody standing there validating, yes, you are really good at this. So my profile comes up as a cheerleader profile, which is funny because I coached cheerleaders for a while and did all that kind of stuff. But I am a true cheerleader because I will say to somebody and say, you are amazing in this area. So let's figure out how to use this in your business. And going back to where those limitations are, I'm not really good at certain things. I actually tell people about it right up front and say, this is where I'm not good at, but here's how I have created a workaround for myself. Here's how I have worked with somebody else that has made me stronger with other things that I can bring to the table for them. Here is what I do because of this. I have a profile that is a natural born sales profile, but the one thing that I can't do well is close. So I have a workaround for it. I actually close when I open. So I flip the script, because the reason I can't close is because I'm so much about building relationships with people. So when I tell people, I'm like, you are so good at building relationships. that you don't want to have that relationship end. So closing the sale is the end of a relationship to you. That's why you can't close. When you answer that question and understand what the limitation really means, you understand how to make it work better for you. I still have those relationships. I still build the relationship. I just start with the close because it's not the ending then. I make it the beginning when I do it. And it builds upon that in the relationship. So I became a better closer because of it. I became somebody who did better in my sales. And when I work with people, I'm picking that one thing out and saying, you're amazing at listening to people. Have you ever thought about doing a podcast with somebody? So, and it's just like, people are like, I'm always told I'm quiet, I'm reserved, I'm this. And I'm like, those may seem like limitations to you. They're actually something you can use as a strength in another capacity. So flip it, do something else with it, do something that makes it a strength, and those type of things.
Hey, thanks for listening so far. I just wanted to stop and tell you about Bambi, which is a great HR resource for small business owners. It's basically outsourcing your HR or getting HR support in-house for managing all of your employees. They also help with payroll services too, but their real bread and butter specialty is providing small business owners with comprehensive HR support and setting you up with best practices for the long-term success of your business. So if that's something that you're into, I highly recommend checking them out. They are a great resource and one of my favorite ones to recommend for HR services. The link for that is Bambee, BAMBEE.GRSM.io/catalyst. And the link will also be in the show notes for the episode in case that's too many letters to remember. Check it out. I like the Strengths Finder has always been my favorite because that was at the beginning of my leadership journey. Well, second leadership journey, I guess. It was kind of a rite of passage. So when people came in as a leader, you took the Strengths Finder assessment and then we had them displayed in our sales room with like our, department titles and our strengths and stuff. And so that's always been kind of my almost like starting point for people who are trying to figure out some of that stuff is because it's strengths focused and it's not, there's lots of other assessments, I think, but they tend to go into too much detail almost. So if you're at the beginning, it's like, I like starting with that because it's like, oh, this makes sense. It's like, these are the things that you're really good at now. It can evolve as you evolve and grow as a leader because mine's changed. I think I've taken it 3 or 4 times over the last 15-ish years and it changes except for like a few that are they're just a part of it. Like it's, yeah. I'm like, strategic is always my number one. And maybe it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy because when I'm taking it, I'm like, I'm super strategic, but at the same time, so there's a couple of those things that are pretty consistent. And then the things that change are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I've really leaned into this and honed this strength and at this point in my journey. So what are your go-tos that you use with teams or with people?
I like to work with DISC. And the reason I like to work with DISC is because it's all about behavior, and behavior is the one thing that can be adjusted. We're not talking about changing full on, but human nature, first of all, is to be accepted. We naturally adjust our behaviors to be accepted. So whatever you want to be accepted as, or wherever you want to go, it's human nature. It's a subconscious thing that we do. And because of that, behavior is the one thing that moves around and adjust to meet the needs of the situation. And I love situational leadership as well, because I always think it's based on who you're dealing with and the situation itself. That's what type of leader you need to be. So I teach situational leadership when I do the executive coaching and the team coaching and things like that. But I really work heavily in DISC because, again, it's about behaviors. It's about preferences. It's about how you show up. But the assessment that I gives a work profile, a home profile, and a stress profile. So it gives you different scenarios of where you show up and how you show up different in each of those situations, or how you may show up the same. My profile actually is the same across the board in all 3 of those situations. That's because I have a very unique profile that falls into that category. Most people, their work environment changes how they answer the questions, how they show up. When I was working in corporate though, my profile was completely different than it is right now. I happen to have a chameleon type of profile. It's a specific type of profile that I fall into. And when I was in corporate, I tested very high in the areas of the corporate environment I was working in. So if I was with a lot of type A people or a lot of D type individuals or a lot of C type individuals, wherever it was, I tested high in those areas because I assimilated myself into those environments. My home environment, though, would change as well because it just would stay straight across the board because I would become where I was most involved, and work has always been. Even though I have a very good work-life balance, work has always been how I've defined myself. So my profiles stayed consistent. But again, it's about changing based on the needs of the situations. It's about who you are, where your preferences are, and it really does uncover those core things about yourself. It does change over time. It changes based on our experiences. It changes based on the people around us. And it's one of those things that I enjoy working with, but I love strengths finders as well. That's one of my favorites as well. I also like the Colby assessments as well, very similar to the strengths finders in how they have those as well, because they all are giving you a specific piece of who you are in a different focus area. So the strengths finders is just about your strengths. DISC also gives you your limitations, your fears, where your preferences do not lie, why they don't, and it kind of gives you a little bit more information about why those things. And I'm a big curiosity person. I have to know the why behind things. It's always about why something has occurred. And so I usually do a lot of DISC assessments with people, and I have different versions of it. I have versions that cover, I even have versions for children, but I have versions for sales. I have versions for leadership. I have versions that cover different areas. But one of my favorite parts about the assessment I give is it gives you a behavioral assessment. This is how and why we make choices and decisions. So whether you're more leaning in the artistic sense, you could be more on the social humanitarian, having an altruistic need to help people, so to speak, inner awareness and focusing on balancing your inner with your outer self, things like that. And so there's 6 different categories there's a political one. It's not politics, but yes, most people in politics usually are higher in the political side of things. The inner awareness one, and a lot of people think that's more about the religious base of things. And I'm like, a lot of people for that one do fall into the religious category, but no, that's not what it is. There's also economically driven individuals. There's people who are driven by knowledge. So there's 6 different categories, and we're a combination of these 6 different categories. So I have 3 categories that I have a dominant profile in. And what it means is, even if you and I have a similar DISC profile, the behavioral attitudes actually drive how you make choices and decisions. This is closer to your core being, and it's who you are. So it doesn't change much over time. It can, based on experiences, but it really stays very similar. And it helps you understand how you make those decisions and how you take in information, and how given similar profiles, even if our strengths finders and everything else lines up, if our behavioral attitudes are different, you and I will make different choices based on the information we're given. So if I'm more economically driven, I'm more resource driven. I want to make sure I have enough resources to move forward with whatever we're trying to make a decision about. And if you're more social humanitarianism driven, you will actually make a decision that's based on how you can help the most people in the situation. Not that I'm not concerned about helping people. It's just that I'm driven first by making sure resources are available. So if I can't find the right resources, I'm going to try to figure out how to do something else. Whereas you're driven by how you can most help people, and the resources is a secondary or a tertiary thing for you. So it's all about how we're driven to make these choices and decisions. And it's really funny, because if you would ask me the same set of questions, and when I was a kid, how I would come about to a certain thing, I literally would tell you, well, you have to make sure that you can do what you want to do. So you have to make sure you have the things to do it with. It's like, I could hear myself saying that as a kid too. Like, can we do what we want to do? Do we have all the materials needed to do this project? I don't have all the materials, so I can't do this kind of thing. So I could hear myself saying that, because I'm highly economically driven in how I make choices. So when I talk to people, and it's just like, it's not about greed. It's thought to be greedy for some people, because we do and economics is a different resource for us, but it's about resources. And so it's kind of funny when you sit down and you talk to somebody and you're like, so do you do a lot of charity work. And people are like, yes, how did you know? And I'm like, because I'm reading through your profile. And I'm like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, because you're driven with an altruistic need to help people, which means you probably, if you can't give to charities, you probably support charities by volunteering. And if you can't volunteer, you probably support them in a different way. So you speak about it, you post it, you repost things in social media, those type of things. And they're like, okay, so it kind of gives you that real who you are. And it's so funny because when you read that part of the profile, like I gave it to one of my sisters, and when people are looking at it, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is you. This is so you. This is how you've always been. This is how you do what you do. And it just gives you that layer of how things come about. So if you have a strengths finders and you're a quick start, or you are somebody who falls into, and I'm losing my categories for strengths finders right now. So, but if you're in whatever category you're in, it gives you that other layer of how you've come about to making decisions based on those things as well. So it kind of just gives you a all encompassing, here's really where my strengths are, because if you really need to figure out how to make something work with little or no resources, or the resources are not available, you want somebody who's economically driven because they will find those resources. If you want somebody who is you want somebody politically minded if you need to change policy with things. If you need somebody who is capable of helping people understand why something is better over here than it is over here, and convincing people, which is why politics is where it is. If you have a need for helping people understand how things work, you want somebody that's more knowledge driven because they're capable of finding that information and those type of things. Or you want somebody who has all three of those all together if they're explaining to an organization something very specific and technical, those type of things. So, it kind of just helps you with that kind of stuff.
That makes sense. Hey, thanks for listening so far. I just wanted to share one of my favorite payroll processing and HR systems that I like to use. Gusto.com, Gusto, is one of my favorite payroll processing systems in particular, but also they have a ton of great HR support add-ons that you can get as well, especially as your business is evolving. They can help you create employee handbooks, hiring and onboarding processes. And one of my favorite features is that they will actually file all of your payroll taxes for you. So that's one less thing that you have to worry about. They'll take out taxes every time you process payroll, and then they'll send them to the places that they need to go when they need to get there. So one less thing to worry about as a small business owner, since most of us wear a million hats. Gusto is one of my go-tos. If you're interested in that, if you use my link, you'll get a $100 Visa gift card. The link for that is gusto.com, gusto.com/D like D's /Kristen, Kristin 7202. And that link will also be in the show notes for you. But again, can't rave enough. It's one of my favorite systems that I use to run my business. So if people are looking for someone like you to help them grow their businesses, what do they need to know to make sure they find someone that's a great fit? Like, how do they know they need an HR consultant or coach or expert versus something else in their business?
So I always say, when you put out the question of finding the right coach for you, finding somebody, you have to know what your needs actually are. So answer the question of what you're looking for to build in your business. If you're looking to build your team, then look for somebody who focuses in an area of team building and leadership development. If you're looking for somebody who, if you're a small company and you don't have an HR person, of course, HR consulting just seems natural for that kind of thing. But if you're really looking to build your business in a different way, somebody like me, I'm not for everybody. So one of the very first things I teach most of my clients is how to, you have to have a walkaway statement. And you use your walkaway statement when you know this is something that you don't want to do. For instance, if somebody asks me about doing financial type stuff, I 100% of the time say no to people. I'm not a financial consultant. Do I do my own stuff? Can I go through it? I already told you I hire a bookkeeper, even though I'm capable of doing it on my own. Do I know what a P&L looks like? Do I do all of those things? Do I read my own? Yes, I understand all of those things, but I'm not your person. If you're setting up a corporation or you're setting up business documents and articles of business, even though I understand how that works because I've done my own, I will tell you to go to an employment lawyer or a small business lawyer and get advice around those things, because I have a corporation for a very specific reason. A corporation doesn't work for everyone. So would an LLC work better for you? I'm not the right person to get that advice for. So you need to know exactly what your needs are and what you're trying to accomplish. And then you have to ask that question and say, these are my needs. Are you the right fit for that? And I always do a consultation with people. And in that consultation, I will say, so what are your next steps? What are you looking to do? That's my way of saying, okay, Kristen, what are you looking to do? Are you looking to collaborate with somebody like me? Or is this something that's not going to work for you? Or I say, you're probably not looking for somebody like me. And this is where that walk away statement comes in, because these are the things that I provide to my clients. I don't think I'm going to be able to provide what you need right now, but I do know somebody who actually does that. So let me give you so-and-so's name. And so, I said, I have a couple of people, but so-and-so is the person I would go to if I had to work. If I had a question like you have, this is who I go to get that answer. And this is a person I trust. Can I introduce you to that person? and then I give that to somebody else, even if it's another business coach that focuses in a different area than I focus in. If you are not looking at, for my clients, if you're not looking for something to figure out where your strengths are or really who you are and where those best work in your business, building foundations, meeting your goals, sales, those type of things, if you're not really looking in those type of areas, I'm probably not the best fit for you, but I can help you figure out who you are and give you that assessment, and we can go from there and those type of things, and we can figure out if that's where you want to go. But if you don't want to take an assessment and you don't believe in assessments, I'm not going to be the right coach for you. So I coach with assessments, and you really want to make sure that even if you want to have an assessment, you do want to do the DISC assessment. You think my program is fabulous from what you can see online. You think it meets all the marks. If you and I are not meshing when we're talking, I'm not the right fit for you. And you have to have somebody that you can trust. You have to have somebody that will believe in what you're doing. You have to have somebody who is going to be strong enough to tell you when it's probably there's another path you can go down. I never tell somebody that's not the right path. I always say, let's explore all the opportunities and figure out what the best thing is for you. But you have to have somebody who's strong enough to, if it needs to be a no, can tell you no, in whatever capacity that is. Because if it's somebody who's a yes person and is just feeding you what they think you want to hear, that's not going to get you where you need to go. That's going to get you in the same place, feeling better about yourself, but not where you want to go next. And if your option is to go to the next place, you need somebody who can do that for you. And I'm not for everybody, nor is the person who's the coach next to me. We all do something specific and we all meet the needs of somebody specific. And it's kind of one of those things. It's kind of hard to say this because a lot of people are like, so you say no to clients? And I say, yeah, I actually do. I say no to clients because it's not going to do them any good. And it's also not going to do me any good because I'm going to be stressed out working with them, trying to meet their needs. It's not a good fit for me. I can get a bad review out of it. I'm not going to help them. And my whole entire goal is helping people get to the next level, whatever that may be for them. So I'm only going to stress myself out and not do what I'm meant to do for people and what makes me happy. That makes me happiest, is helping somebody else. So when you're looking for in your business and you're having a conversation with somebody, you really need to be focused in, do they meet my needs? Are they somebody I mesh with? Are they somebody I trust? Are they somebody who's going to be able to help me get to the next level? And do I think I can continue to work in what they're saying their program is? And if that's a no, then ask them who they would recommend. And sometimes that seems a harsh thing to do, but I will always tell you if I recommend somebody else. I actually do it before you tell me most of the time because I've figured it out. I'm one of those people, I'm like, yeah, I figured out if you're not my client most of the time before you figured it out. and I'm able to say, yeah, you need somebody who does this, and I really don't do that. So can I refer you to that individual?
Yeah.
So
I think it's important finding somebody that meshes well with you, because they're going to be a partner for you for however long you work together. So
absolutely.
yeah. So as an entrepreneur and business owner yourself, what advice would you give fellow business owners when it comes to running their businesses?
Know that you don't have all the right answers and to seek out the people who can help you with those. Like one of the very first things I did, one of the best things I did, and the reason I'm not with a franchise any longer is I found the right person. I have my own coach. I have a mentor. I have both. And it was finding that right individual that asked me the right questions to get me on the right path. And if you don't have somebody doing that for you and helping you, because you don't have all the right answers, you have the answers and you have the expertise in whatever your business is, but you don't have all the answers for everything a business entails. I had to swallow that pill. It was a hard one to swallow. And it was a very difficult thing that I did not do the best thing for myself in the beginning. And I was fortunate enough to make the choice to say this isn't the right road for me to be on very quickly in my career, because I'm in my, so I started in 2019 was the first year of my business. So 2020, 2021, I just celebrated my 3rd year anniversary for my business. So I'm in year 3 to 4 right now in my business. I figured out very early on that I wasn't doing the right thing. And I was fortunate enough to do that quick enough and have a way to get out of it and to change what I was doing and to make that choice. I always tell people, just because this is the idea from the beginning, don't think you have to stick with it. It's kind of like when you're going and you order something from a restaurant. This is probably the best example. It looks good on the menu, everything lines up, everything seems like it's going to be, it gets served to you and it comes out and it's just not the right thing. Do you continue eating the dish because you ordered it and you stuff it down, or do you ask for something else? Most people continue eating the dish and then they've destroyed the whole entire experience that they're trying to do. And they might not ever go back to that restaurant ever again, which is sad because that's what happens to business owners in the beginning. If they have a bad taste in their mouth about something, they don't go back to that area. I sent back the dish and ordered something different. And that's the hardest thing to do because you're paying for 2 dishes. You're making a choice to spend more money against something. You're saying you made a mistake with your first choice. You're admitting that you did not do something that you thought was the right thing for you. And I always tell people in the moment when I made that choice, it was the best decision for me to make. If I had figured it out sooner, I'd be a lot further in my journey with my business and my growth pattern than I am right now. But I'm still not bad because I sent it back early enough and I figured it out early enough. And I still visit that same restaurant because it's a great restaurant and I did not go back to it. So when you're going through it, if you figured out you made the mistake, admit you made the mistake, search out the people who can help you fix the mistake. And you have to kind of swallow that pride a little bit and move beyond that. And that, me even saying it now, if you notice I'm pausing when I'm saying it, it's because I'm still uncomfortable about admitting I made a mistake when I made the mistake. It's still a hard thing for me to say. When I decided to leave the corporate world, I was the most raw and new and tried to do something and it just didn't work out the way it should have worked out for me. And it was saying, this isn't working and I need to do something different. That was the best thing I ever did. Not everybody has to go through that journey, but if you have something that's not working well for you, you need to be able to say, this is something that's not working best. And sometimes you have to, I had money that I had to leave on the table for something. I had a lot of money I had to leave behind. And I made more money because of it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I put money into this. If you're working with a coach, I'm sure that you've had clients that have been working with you that they kind of, I can't say I'm sure. I've had clients who have been working with me, but we've all had that client that's just like, something's not meshing well and you don't know why it's not meshing well. And it takes a huge thing to say, I don't think we should be working together kind of thing. And something's not working here for both of us. I think we should just call it quits. If you have a contract in place, it's very difficult to do those things. You either have to leave money on the table or you have to pay money to get out of something. And sometimes that's the most difficult thing because that's a waste of a resource. For me, that was very difficult to do. It took me forever to do that. I had to pay out a contract to get out. And it was difficult to do that kind of thing. But I'm making 3 times the amount of money I was making before I made that decision now, because I made the switch that I should have made it into and doing the things I should have been doing. And I've had my best year ever. And that happens when you grow your business, and it usually happens around this time as well. But I'm doing better than I should have been doing, even with that growth pattern that normally happens with new entrepreneurs, because I made that choice. So swallow your pride a little bit, make that choice, make that decision, and say, this isn't the right fit for me and I need something else. And know that you haven't made a mistake. The mistake is walking away completely if you're meant to have a business. And sometimes not having a business is the thing that you need to say. Sometimes it's, this is not the right thing for me. This is not the right business plan. I recently worked with a client that the business plan wasn't the right business plan for them. And it was sitting down with them going, I understand that this is part of who you are and this is what you want to do, but this is not working for you. What do you want to do? You can change it, or you can completely walk away, or you can go down this path even further and you're going to continue to hemorrhage money. And any of those scenarios are the right thing for you to do if it's the right thing in this moment. But I'm telling you, those are your options. And they chose to change their plan. And that's why they were talking to me in the first place. So it's like, okay, these are the changes that need to be made. Here's where we need to cut things. Here's where you need to do these things. And, how do you feel about this? And we'll see what happens. It's a recent thing. The changes seem to be good. They seem to be working, but they're going to know to change those things quicker in the future. The one thing that we went through is, if something's not working, get rid of it quickly, move on, get beyond it and do the next thing. And I always look at people like Cuban and Musk and, all of the people who have started businesses, Steve Jobs, all of those individuals that have, if you know about Elon Musk, right before Tesla, the money came in for Tesla, he was about to file bankruptcy. He was about to completely give up on something. But he didn't give up. He kept moving forward. And it's because he wasn't down the right path and he had to change something to get to where he was going, but he finally figured out how to do it. And look at where he is today. He might not be the best person to talk about, but if you look at so many of those people, when you hear the inspiring stories, or do you know the story about the founder of Tom's? So it's one of my favorite stories in the world. It's actually why I started a business in the first place. Do you know what Tom's is? The Tom shoes?
Yeah, the shoes. Yeah.
But
and they give a pair of shoes.
It's a 1-for-1 model.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He started on, do you remember the show that was on, where they were traveling around the world in partnerships, solving I can't remember the Great Race or the Great, do you know what
Amazing
I'm talking
Race?
about? Amazing Race, yes. He was on the Amazing Race.
Oh, okay.
So he was there and they happened to go to South America, and don't quote me on that one exactly, South America. And there were people without shoes on down there when they saw them. And he happened to come across somebody. He was in a bar and he happened to come across the person who was in charge of one of the local factories that was down there. And he said, what is the problem here? And they was like, we just don't have enough resources we can't give shoes to people that are in need and they can't pay for the shoes. And he said, this is a travesty. And he was just like, we want to help the people, but we have too many people. We can't help them. So he came up with this great business idea. And when he came back to the States after he went through the show and everything, he came back to the States and he said, I'm going to do this. He went back down and visited the person. And he goes, will you run my factory? But here's the model. Every shoe we make, we have to make 2, one to sell and one to give. And he goes, you can't do that. That's not profitable. And he said, no, we're going to make this work because this is why I'm doing it. And he went through this whole entire thing and started this process and happened to come across where the story went into, and I can't remember what magazine it was, but somebody decided to do a story on him and he wasn't doing well. He wasn't selling shoes. He was basically running it out of his apartment and all of these things. And to have him tell this story, he's an amazing storyteller, by the way. But he was like, I just don't know how to make this work. I need to continue. I don't know how to make this work. They accepted the story broke. And the person from either Bloomingdale's or Neiman Marcus or one of those places called him and said, we need 1,000 shoes in our stores. We just read your story and we want to carry your shoes. We need 1,000 shoes or 10,000 shoes or what have you. And he was just like, puts his hand over the phone. Him and his sister were together. He had somebody else sitting there. He had an intern that was working for him for free at the time. And he's sitting there and he's going, we can't do this. We can't do this. I guess the intern took the phone and said, yes, let me go ahead and take that order for you. Took the order and had no idea how they were going to do this, but they made it happen. But we know about Tom's today because of that. And it was that individual that said, we're going to do this. We're going to figure this out. But it's because he started with, we're going to do this. And I'm getting teary-eyed because it's such a strong, powerful message, because it is such an amazing thing that you can do whatever you set out to do, and you can do so many different things. And if that's your business model, you stay with those things. But he had to change something. He was about to say, no, we can't do this. I don't think I can do this. And the person grabbed the phone and said, yes, we can do this. Took the thing, hung up the phone before he could say anything else. And he tells the story so much better, but it was that one thing that came about. I mean, they had to call back and say, well, we can't have it by when you said, but we will have shoes for you. We will fulfill this order, kind of thing. But it's like, when you're running a business, sometimes you have to take that leap. You have to do those things. And it's an amazing story. If you've never, Blake Mikowski is the founder of Tom's, and he has this amazing book called Start Something That Matters. And he tells the story in that book. And it's just an amazing story to know that you just have to keep moving forward.
I like that. Yeah, that's a crazy story. I knew the part about the like 1-for-1 shoes, but I didn't really know the background of it. So that's super cool. Yeah. Because I think that's the stuff that really changes the world, is somebody doing something that's a trailblazer like that is like, it can be done. It's going to be hard.
And how many people do that now? How many people do the 1-for-1 now that completely, like there's a local company here and they are for shelters. So every time they sell a product, they sell dog collars and things like that. They give one to a dog shelter here locally. So many businesses have a similar model now because he created this thing that nobody said could be done. You can't have a 1-for-1 model and make it successful. And he figured it out.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So how do people find you? How do they connect with you? Where can they stalk you on the internet? All those good things.
Absolutely. So best place to go for me is coachjenbilger.com, and it's coach JenBilger.com. My website takes you everywhere. It takes you to where you can find me on Instagram. It takes you to anywhere what I'm doing, like when I post for these things, different places that I'm speaking at, if that interests you, or how you can get a hold of me and schedule time with me if you just want to talk to me and have a free consultation. So
perfect. Easy peasy. Yeah. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I super appreciate it. It's always fun to have people on, and I don't get a lot of the HR perspective. So I feel like it's a good, much needed topic.
I tried to keep it out as much as possible, but it sneaks back in.
No, it's good. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks so much for listening today. This was a great episode, and I'm sure you will appreciate the tips and insights from today. If you want to connect further with our guests, you can find the contact information, social media links, etc., any of the freebies in the show notes from today's episode. Please show some love to our guests and like, follow, and subscribe their content if you connected with them. And also don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. Also, if you drop a juicy review, that's always cool too.